There are visionaries who craft strategy from the boardroom, and there are the builders in the trenches who turn those ideas into reality. Our guest has spent his career masterfully embodying both the roles, creating a remarkable story of impact and innovation. I'm extremely delighted to introduce Mr. Sunil Mishra, Senior Director of Product Management at Publicis Sapient. Throughout his 25-year career at leading firms like McKinsey, Oracle, Accenture, Infosys, he has established himself as an architect of new capabilities, repeatedly building products from ground up. From establishing the product design and development capability to creating the entire ecosystem innovation group and even designing a formal idea to incubation lab to encourage innovation, he has consistently driven creation. Also, he channels wealth of his experience into his work as a prolific author of 5 books. He is a BTech from IIT Dhanbad and an MBA from IIM Lucknow. He is a leader, an author, an educator, teaching the principles of AI and product management at our nation's top institutions. It is this rare synthesis of strategic insight, hands-on building, and deep intellectual curiosity that makes today's conversation so compelling. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Shruti, and glad to be here. It's my honor as well, meeting the students and being part of this great event. So happy to be here.
We are happy to have you, sir. So we'll begin with the questionnaire.
Sure.
Yeah. So looking back at your time across banking technology, consulting, product management, what is one constant in product leadership across these different environments and one thing that changes dramatically?
Yeah, so the way I would like to answer this is one thing that has remained constant throughout is the definition of what. As a product leader, I think the fundamental thing that you have to start with is what is a problem statement, right? So what problem that you're trying to address. So that has more or less remained the same across all, across this time. Now, how you solve that has been changing, right? So when I say how you solve that, what kind of tools you're using, methodologies you're using, and all those things, right? And that's where the AI is coming in. A lot of these things are kind of becoming more efficient. But if you see the larger part of the product leadership, definition of what, that has remained the constant all through this time.
Thank you, sir. So could you share a key learning from your experience about what it takes to successfully launch an innovative product within a large established organization?
Yeah. So large organizations have their own running business, right? They have their own issues and they have to support those products, their customers. And so most of their time is spent in running that business, right? BAU, what we call business as usual. So usually they have very little appetite or bandwidth to address something which is very innovative, because most of their time, energy is consumed in their current existing customers, that is their bread and butter. So my experience has been that the only way to kind of push innovation in these large organizations have to have another small setup that is isolated with the rest of the organizations, and this small entity is like empowered enough to take their own decision. They are not constrained by the organizational processes, and they are not kind of burdened by the day-to-day affair, right? So I think the key strategy for the organizations that I have seen in the past is like having a small segregated team that can do blue sky thinking, that can actually work on new areas, and this team has enough empowerment and mandate to work on new things.
That's an interesting thought, sir. I was going through your posts and I came across one term called product mindset.
Yeah.
In a world full of buzzwords, could you break down for us what the term truly means to you?
Yeah, true. So for me, the product mindset is not just about product development, right? You can apply this to everything in your day-to-day affair, in your even services project that you do. And the way I understand product mindset is something like the first and foremost thing is like outcome versus effort, right? Mm-hmm. So in the product mindset, you focus on the outcome. You don't focus on the effort that you spend. And which is very clear, right? So if you're using a product today as a customer, you would not pay for a product just because somebody has spent effort in that. You will pay only if you derive value. So the whole discussion is about value, right? And this is relevant for everything that we do, right? Unfortunately, many times we kind of measure the whole thing with the effort that we spend, which is not the right way. So that's one paradigm. Other thing that I believe in the product mindset is like you need to have a life cycle focus, right? So starting from the inception to development to launch of the product, even in launch, after launch, how do you support the product? How do you maximize the value of a product across its life cycle, lifetime? That is a very important aspect of the whole life cycle focus, right? The other thing that I already mentioned is like asking owning the requirement, owning the problem statement, right? That is a very critical part of the product mindset, right? So for example, usually in the other services organization, you do something what the customers are told you to do, right? In product organization, it's not the customer's requirement, it's the product manager's requirement. The product manager can take input from customer, from internal stakeholders, from the maybe competitors and all that, but eventually it's the product manager who owns and defines the requirement, right? So this is another, like you have to own the problem statement and the requirement, and then the other things I believe is something like you build for scale. The product you always build for scale, and other point that is closely related to the problem statement is the product market fit. So whatever work you're doing, it should relate to the problem that you're trying to solve. So keep iterating with the problem, go back and forth and all that, and connect with the problem statement before you actually solve that. And this mindset is something that you can apply across many other domains, not just product management. So that's what I understand broadly with product mindset.
Thank you, sir. I'm definitely gonna use it in my toolkit.
Yeah.
So, sir, as a leader of product teams, one has to often deal with dynamic client requirements. My question is how to anchor the product vision and keep roadmap on track when the landscape is constantly shifting.
True. So it's very, very important question, and many product managers will deal with that, especially if you have a live product, right? You keep getting requirements all the time, and then you have to kind of deliver those requirements. Eventually, if you just take the requirement from a client and you deliver, then actually you're not a product manager. You're just managing a feature factory. You're just scheduling the requirements and all, and there is no big deal about that. So what I tell product managers is like, you have to always ask questions. Okay, you can always say yes to a requirement, but ask why. Okay, so unless you are convinced why the requirement is there and all that, you should not put that as part of the product balance. So being a gatekeeper to the requirement, make sure that everything the client is asking, that should be justified in the product roadmap. Don't build it for the client, specific client. Okay, build it for a market. So that is, I think, the key element according to me.
So I think asking why is of very importance.
Yes.
So my next question is, personalization drives engagement, but privacy concerns are on the rise. How do you balance between user delight and user trust?
Yeah, so I think, again, some of these things are evolving, especially with technology. The question like trust and all that is very important, right? And new technology always, it will take time to develop trust. And I mean, if you just recall like what happened with internet banking some time back, right? So when it was launched maybe in early 1990s and all that, people thought like nobody will put their credit card information, nobody will ever do any financial transaction on internet because they thought it is too risky. But today we all do that, right? So it's a function of changing human behavior, and that behavior will change based on the kind of guardrails they see. Sometimes they'll kind of try something new, and so that's how the trust will build. And that's especially with technology, since it is getting disrupted so fast, right? The trust will always be a lagging thing, okay? But if the technology is really implemented well with proper guardrails and all these things, then probably it will come with time.
Yes, I completely agree with you, sir. So next is prioritization is often more of an art than a science.
Yeah.
When you have competing priorities from sales, engineering, and senior leadership,
Yeah.
what is a mental model or technique that you rely on to take a call on what to build next?
Yeah, so a few times I have done like this, created a list of requirements and asked my stakeholders to prioritize that. And actually, it was a mess, right? Because almost everybody will say everything is important.
Yeah.
And if you go to the leadership, they'll say, we want everything. You tell us what you want from us, right? So, but that defeats the whole prioritization purpose.
Right.
The purpose of prioritization is that you have to break this into chunks,
Right.
break it into different time horizon and all that, right? So, I mean, few times I realized that probably should never take all the requirements and share it with the stakeholders and ask them to prioritize, because they would never do that. Actually, you should put some kind of a constrained prioritization. So one of the technique that I used in the past was like, told the stakeholders that imagine you have some $1,000 budget, okay, and you have to spend those $1,000 in these 20 requirements. So how will you spend those $1,000? So now they have to do some kind of a prioritization internally. They have to do some kind of modeling, right? So it's like, and then of course you see how much is the effort required. So the value capture from the stakeholders, you have to force some constraint on them to really do that.
Right. So that's a very intelligent technique, I'd say. So what is the healthiest way you found to manage the natural creative tension between product, engineering and design teams to ensure that you get the best possible outcome?
Yeah, so if you're working especially in the new idea generation field and all that stuff, you need participation from everyone, right? Especially when you're building a new product or you're developing a new experience and all that stuff. So it's very important that you integrate different teams together and you make them as part of the product vision. So my view is that many of these roles will converge, and with this AI and all that stuff, sometimes engineer is doing a product manager role, sometimes product manager is also developing some MVP and things like that, right? So all these roles are converging. The way to probably handle this to have the integrated vision on what you're going to build, what is the problem statement that you're trying to solve, and how you're trying to kind of integrate the whole thing. So having that vision, having that product vision, and sharing it with the entire team, having the buy-in of the team, that is very crucial for integration. Everybody has to understand the role that the person has to play in the whole product development.
So a follow-up question to that. So if you're defining a product vision, so you just need to sometimes translate it into terms of which team you're conveying the message to. So how do you manage to keep the essence constant, but the idea has been conveyed flawlessly to each of the team?
Yeah, so you're right. Like one is the team should understand the vision. They should buy into the vision. They should build their own stake in the idea, right? And once that is done, then they have to translate what it means to them. So a lot of this, if you have done the idea part well, many of these things like the team will do it themselves. They will figure out what does it mean for engineering, what does it mean for experience, what does it mean. So though you have to do some facilitation there in terms of channelizing that, but if the team is empowered enough, they'll figure out how they do the things in their domain to make sure the overall objective is met. Yeah.
So could you walk us through your philosophy on building an MVP? Specifically, how would you define minimum and what truly it means? And what are the key signals you look out for after launch to make the critical decision to like either pivot, persevere or scrap the idea?
Yeah, so MVP is again very important, especially when it comes to new product development, right? The way I define MVP is that invest in the product till the time you are able to get the customer is able to give you the feedback. That should be the state of the product. Okay, so that's how I define. They should be able to experience the product. They should be able to give you feedback on that, and you should be able to iterate through your product using that idea. And so I believe that that's how I define MVP. Technically, I believe that unless you have got this right, you should not go into the development phase. And many of the startups, they say you should not write a single line of code unless you have got a customer or somebody is willing to pay for it, for that problem, right? So that is what I understand, that MVP is a stage or a stage of the product where the customer is able to experience the product and give you real feedback. Okay, And your next question was on
So,
this?
if how do you make the decision if you want to continue or scrap the idea?
Yes. So I think again that's very, very important because as part of incubation team, I was working with multiple ideas. Some of them did not see the light of the day, right? So there is a huge difference between MVP and a paying customer. Okay. So if you see that that gap is getting longer, okay, you're having a product but nobody is willing to pay for it, whatever is a small amount, then I think that's the time to pivot. Okay. If you have reached out to your target customers, you have shown them the value proposition, you have done it few times, and still if you're not able to make the first sale, I think that's the time to pivot. So between MVP to first sale is a period you have to decide.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned about incubation teams. So I was going through your LinkedIn. So I found that there was an idea of innovation lab that you introduced. Why do you think creating a formal structuring pathway for new idea is so critical for a company's success?
Yeah, so especially in large companies, and there's a very nice book on this called Change by Design, okay, by Tim Brown. It's a nice book on design thinking. So he talks about politics of new ideas in a large company, and which is quite real. So in larger company, it's not that people are short of ideas, but you have to navigate through the organization internally to actually make any idea work, because there's so many stakeholders and everybody's having their own interest, and it's a kind of maze. So most of the ideas die not because the customers reject them, but they're not able to navigate the internal water of the organization. Okay, so I mean I'm quoting this from the book, but that has been my experience as well, especially in large organizations. You have to make sure that your idea has right buy-in, you have the right sponsorship, and for doing that, I guess a small team, a separate team makes sense, because then you're not competing with the same resources that the organization is deployed in a BAU, which is the bread and butter.
Right. So you mentioned competition in the environment. So how do you think the rapid change is driving the competition, and how do you decide what not to build?
Yeah, I think that's very important. In fact, not just what not to build, but what to drop from the existing product, right? That is also very important. Sunsetting a product is one of the worst nightmare for a product manager, right? Nobody wants to preside over a dying product, but that's the reality as well. I mean, many organizations I have worked, they have a portfolio of product. Some of them are actually in a stage that everybody knows that it's not going to work further, but they don't take a call to shut it down. They don't take a call to sunset. Now the result of that is that you're spending so much of bandwidth, your people, your management attention, and all that stuff. So portfolio prioritization is very important, and you must, as a product manager, you must know what are the products that you're trying to drop, what are the features in the product that you're trying to drop, and what are the features that you are not going to build, even though you have got that requirement, right? So it's very, very important.
Right, sir. So with the advent of AI, which phase of the product development life cycle, be it discovery, design, development of GTM, do you believe has been most significantly accelerated, and what has the impact been?
Yeah, so I believe that AI will change all the phases, and it will kind of significantly improve the effectiveness in development phase, ideation phase, GTM phase, and all that. It's also incidentally the topic of my doctoral research, where I'm trying to figure out what is the impact of AI tool in different product development phase. Okay, so that's something that I'm researching. But my hypothesis is like AI has been able to make biggest impact in the ideation phase, because earlier ideation used to take a lot of time. I mean, you will build, even prototype building was a very extensive exercise. Today you can build a prototype just like on the fly. On a weekend you can just create a user experience, right? So ideation has become that cycle of iteration, trying out new idea, experimenting it. That is shortened.
Yes.
And that is the most significant thing. That's why you will have a kind of plethora of ideas coming, right? a lot of product development happening at a rapid pace. So ideation is the most important phase according to me.
So in the brainstorming phase, I think
Yeah.
the AI
Brainstorming phase, you can do many ideas now. You can prototype so many of them. You can do a faster feedback loop, right? And that has been enriched a lot by, and with all these AI tools, right? You can generate images, you can generate text, you can create a product, the whole experience layer using some of these tools and all that. So it is really fascinating.
Thank you, sir. It's very interesting to know that. So I'll talk about your book, Mysteries of Mind. It delves into empathy, memory, and happiness from a scientific and philosophical view. How does this deep understanding of human mind directly influence how you practice product management?
Yeah, so though this book was not from the product management perspective, right, but I can still relate some aspect of that. So, I mean, there are a lot of ways human mind, handles certain situation. And one of the thing I believe is the communication. Okay, the way we understand communication, that has remained same entire for a long time, and that's what I call storytelling, right? So storytelling is like how you define the problem, how you define the solution, the mentorship, the alternatives, right? The whole path of storytelling. So that is a huge takeaway for product management, right? So how you kind of create a narrative that will appeal to your customer, right? So you have to assume that the customer is the hero of a story. The customer is facing some problem. Now that problem can be solved using your product. So your product can be the guide, right? And then the guide can give you some kind of alternative, and guide will help you solve the problem. And eventually it will also tell you that if you don't solve this, what are the downsides of it? And that's the basis of all storytelling. If you look at any movie, any novel, it's the same storytelling. Like there is a situation, there is a problem, there is a guide, there is an alternative analysis, and eventually there is a solution. Right? So I think this is what I can draw for the product management thing. How to communicate your product story. And that is a lot to do with the way human mind understands stories.
Right, sir. So that's very creative idea to implement. So two of your book titles begin with the phrase "Who stole my," which is "Who stole my job" and "Who stole my time." This suggests a powerful theme of external forces impacting our agency. In the context of product team, what do you see as the biggest thief of a team's focus and momentum, and how do you guard against it?
Yeah, so this is one of the points that we discussed earlier, right? I mean, when I ask product managers, what is the toughest thing you do? The answer is stakeholder management, right? So the product manager is more like a mini CEO. The product manager is responsible for the overall success of the product, and that requires a lot about the aligning different stakeholders, making sure the leadership is aligned, your engineering team is aligned, your customer, your sales, everybody is aligned to the vision. So that alignment takes a lot of time and effort and vision, right? And then how to communicate? How do you communicate the value proposition of your product internally and externally? So I think these two are usually, it's very difficult to formalize that, okay, this is what you should do as part of communication, this is what you should do as part of alignment. These are the softer aspect of the product management, but they're very important for the success of product manager. And these two actually take away a lot of your time also, right? You don't realize because you do that in bits and pieces, and there is no structured science to do stakeholder management or communication internally or alignment and all that, right? So my belief is that alignment and this stakeholder management, communication and all.
Yes, I agree. So we often hear about Apple, Google and Tesla in product case studies. Beyond these famous examples, what is one company or product whose strategy you find particularly fascinating right now, and what can we learn from them?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question, right? So we have seen the shift of the industry, especially in IT and India in particular, from services to now product, right?
Yes.
And my personal belief is like the companies that will eventually succeed will be the companies who do this people plus product, Okay, so you need to have a product mindset. I mean, definitely, and I spoke about that earlier. You need to have product mindset, but you also need to have a people adaptability around it. So it will be the companies who adopt the strategy of people plus product, and some of these companies are doing quite well. So if you follow some of these companies like Palantir and all, even OpenAI in the recent communication. In fact, I read somewhere that they are planning to have a consulting team as well, and these teams will build models for the larger organization. So basically, they're going from pure product to product plus people or people plus product model. That's what I think will be the vision of.
So that's a really
companies.
fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Really fresh perspective. So, sir, I have a fun segment for you, which I like to call the product crossroads.
Sure.
I'm going to give you two options, and you just have to pick the one that you lean towards.
Sure.
So the first is, for your team, do you rely on detailed product specs or high-level problem statements?
High level problem statement.
Okay. So to validate an idea, do you use quantitative data or qualitative user interviews?
So I do both. It's a mixed one. So I use qualitative plus quantitative both.
Okay. What do you think is the bigger challenge? Seeing a new problem for a new market or scaling a solution for an existing market?
Scaling existing product for the current market.
Okay. What do you think is the driver of success? A brilliant product strategy or a flawless team execution?
Flawless team execution, because if you have a good team, you can always change the strategy, product, vision, everything.
Right, sir. So, as a leader, what do you rely on? Data-driven decisions or experience-driven intuition?
Data-driven decision.
Okay. For writing, what do you rely on? Crafting a fiction novel or structuring the non-fiction guide?
Structuring the non-fiction guide. I've written both fiction and non-fiction. So of late, I'm doing more of a non-fiction, but I have done in the past fiction as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, definitely. What is your personal style? Structuring your time meticulously or leaving room for creative chaos?
I'll say a bit of the both, and I enjoy both creative chaos as well as some bit of structuring.
Definitely. That's a good mixer. The future of user interfaces, conversational AI or the next gen graphical interfaces?
So my belief is that it will be conversational AI. It will be a step beyond conversational AI. It can go to something like digital twin or agentic AI, where the twin knows about you and the twin does things on your behalf.
Oh, that's a good thing. So what is an ethical dilemma? Move fast and break things, or regulate first and then innovate?
So as a product innovator, creator, I'll go for move fast and break things.
Definitely. So to close this conversation, I'd like to ask you one final question, which is one daily task you still wish AI could do for you perfectly.
So I'll say prioritization of my work, or I'll say prioritization of my work plus personal thing, right? Across all my interest. So I try to do many things, like I teach, I of course work, and so prioritization across all these things is something I look forward to.
So that would be like having an assistant
Yes.
on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Definitely, sir. So thank you so much for this conversation, and it was an honor to talk to you, and it was a very much enriching experience for me.
Thank you, Shruti, and it was nice talking to the XLRI team. As I said, this was a great event. I was part of it, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.